Hey, thanks for tuning in. My name's Dylan, DevRel guy at Brokk. Today we're going to run through the installation of Brokk, including some prereqs and quality of life tips when you're getting started with Brokk for the first time. So go ahead and grab a drink, sit back, and see how quick it is to get started with our AI coding assistant, Brokk. Okay, to get started, let's cover some prerequisites prior to the installation of Brokk. So to do that, go ahead and switch over to my Windows test box here. And the first thing you're going to want to go ahead and do is pull down Git, the base install. I'll be running on Windows today. Most of the things we're going to be covering as prerequisites are things that I think they're table stakes for most devs. You're going to have them installed or some variation of them installed. So we'll be installing Git first. So the first thing we'll do is go ahead and grab the download from Git's website. There are a lot of different ways you can install Git on a system. You could use a packaging tool like Chocolatey or Homebrew or Winget. I'm just going to use the downloaded install package for this today. Works just fine for what we want to do. So let's grab that and run the installer. We'll run through all the dialogues real quick. Now, the choices here are going to be vary depending on what type of tools you have installed. I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the defaults for in the interest of time. So we'll run through these. This all looks good. Yep. Git credential manager. That's fine. And we'll run that installation. Once we get into Brokk, you'll understand why Git is important. We base most everything we do in Brokk off the Git repo, so it's important to have that pre-installed as well as a Git project, something that we'll talk about here in just a moment as well. And there we go. All right, first prerequisite is installed. The next prerequisite I want to cover is being authenticated with the GitHub website. Inside Brokk, we offer the ability to link your GitHub account with Brokk so that you can actually pull down your projects inside the Brokk tool for use within the editor. So let's go ahead and get authenticated with GitHub here. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with my professional account. And we'll go ahead and pop that in here. Grab the password from my password manager. And get signed in. Not now. We'll send that SMS. 323952. And there we go. Now we're all authenticated with GitHub. And this will become useful later once we're inside the Brokk editor. And I'll show you how to link your Brokk editor to your GitHub account. And then you'll be able to pull projects directly through Brokk. The next item in our list of prerequisites is going to be a code editor. As I said, most people are going to have these things installed. So today we're going to be using a tool called VS Codium. VS Codium is a fork of VS Code. And the only thing differential between VS Code and VS Codium is that VS Codium doesn't collect telemetry. So let's go ahead and get that downloaded. So we'll scroll down here. We'll get the latest release. And then we'll scroll down and find ourselves, and we'll go with this one. Click Save. Once that guy's downloaded, open it up, and we'll run that installer. Okay, so there we go. VS Code is installed, and now we have a code editor. Okay, now that we have our prerequisites installed, it's time to head over to the Brokk.ai website and sign up for Brokk. Now, I'm already signed up, but my recommendation is to click the Try Brokk Now button and authenticate using your GitHub account. Now, you can also authenticate using your Google account. I recommend using GitHub. Just log into your browser, get authenticated with GitHub, and then we'll leverage SSO to just sign directly into the Brokk backend using your GitHub account. Hey, Dylan from the future here. One of the things I wanted to jump back in to cover is if you ever want to see the getting started tutorial again, post creation of your initial account, which is where I'm at, you can just jump back into your dashboard, click this little question mark right here, and it'll run you through the getting started content once again. So you can download a version of the product. You can get your API key, which you can also get in your base dashboard. It'll also take you through loading up your first repository, a possibility of something you can explore like the Godot project and cloning from GitHub. And then finally, it'll give you some pointers on sending your first prompt in, which we're going to cover a little later in this video. But if you ever want to see this tutorial again, click that question mark, run through it, and you're good to go. Before we get started with the install, I'm going to go ahead and run through a couple of what I would consider to be quality of life pointers. I'll just call them pointers. And that is, I like to create a Git initialized directory called start when I first run Brokk. That way I can have that as my landing spot. And then when I want to pull actual repos from GitHub, I can just do that after I've authenticated with Brokk into GitHub. And then I can pull those repos directly down to the system using the Brokk editor. So let's go ahead and create that directory now. You don't have to do it this way, but I like to. Now I like to create a directory called source, and then in here, I'm going to put another directory called GitHub for when I pull things directly from GitHub, and another directory called local. And inside local, I'm going to add in a start directory. As you can see, I've already set those up here. And then this is the directory that I'm actually going to initialize using Git. So let's go ahead and pull open VS Codium. And inside here, I'm just going to use the terminal to navigate to that location. So let's go ahead and do a cd c:, we'll go there, and then we'll cd into source and local and start. And then do that. And then we're just going to throw in a git init command. And all that does is initialize that for a Git repository. Now that we have that up and running, the next step in the process is going to be installing the actual product. Now that we have the installer downloaded, let's go ahead and just run through the install real quick. It's very fast. We'll minimize that, and then we'll double click this to run through the installer. And I'll kind of walk through the dialogues to tell you what to expect here. We're going to install, obviously, we're going to need the Java runtime environment, and Brokk is written in Java. You can pick whatever you want here. I'm going to go ahead and click off because for this box, I like to lock into a specific revision, especially if I'm going to be doing some demos with it. We are going to add it to the start menu, and I'm going to go ahead and tell it not to put something on the desktop, and then we'll click the install button. So we'll go ahead and click proceed there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click Open Brokk. And that will start the software up. And then I'm going to go ahead and navigate directly to that directory once I've put in my Brokk key. So we'll grab that key again, and we'll go here, drop that guy right in there, get validated. And as you can see, it's asking me to, where do I want to start? So in this particular case, I'm going to navigate to this PC. We'll go to my local disk, source, local, start, and we'll open that directory. It says it wants to initialize some stuff for Git and Brokk, and we'll say yes to that. We'll close this window out. I'm going to select essential use only. This is essentially us asking you to, give us some telemetry so we can make the product better. I'm going to click OK here, and then that lands us directly in the base UI. Let me go ahead and talk through the basic interface a bit. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and move myself to the upper corner here. Now, the first thing I want to show you is the prompt window. So this is essentially where you're going to send your prompt into the LLM. And we have a couple of controls that are associated with this window. You can use the microphone, and that'll allow you to use your voice. We have a refine prompt item, which is kind of like if you click it, it'll help you refine your prompt a little bit, as well as a history of this window. And just below that, we have the context window. Now, the context window is probably one of the most interesting parts of Brokk. And I'm not going to go into a great amount of detail because this deserves really its own video, if I'm being honest. But the basic gist of it is that you can grab anything from your current code base and you can establish it as a fragment within the context window. And that can be files, methods, classes, whatever you want to put in here. And it's fully manipulatable on a per fragment basis. So you can delete them, you can lock them, you can do a lot with this context window. So the next thing is once you send your prompt in, all of your output is going to go into this window right here. So as the LLM thinks and our agents are doing their work, it kind of all ends up in this window as an output. And then the next stop is the session manager. Now, sessions within Brokk are essentially we keep track of your work as you're working through a problem, or you're working through a fix or a bug or whatever the task is you're on at the moment. We keep a running session of everything that you're working on, and at any given time, you can actually undo back to a previous state. If you find you go down a path that you don't like, you can kind of undo your work all the way back to a specific spot and try again. Really, really great, powerful tool that we have inside here. I'm going to put myself back down into the corner, and that covers the main parts of the primary user interface. But today, the thing I want to focus on is just getting started. So let's go ahead and go into our settings. And the first thing I want to do is get authenticated with GitHub. So we're going to click this connect to GitHub account. And then that's going to generate the code. You've probably seen this before. There's a lot of applications that do this. We'll go ahead and connect that to my professional account. We'll drop that in here, click continue, and we'll authorize Brokk AI. And congratulations, I'm done. So as you can see now, we are fully linked up to our GitHub account. We'll click apply and OK. And this is where, when you want to pull down an actual project, how you would do that is to click open project. You go to your GitHub repositories. In this case, I've got a couple that I work with, Godot and Terrassology, which is, well, Godot is a game development tool, and Terrassology is a Minecraft-esque voxel-based game. I'm going to go ahead and pull down Terrassology as our example project. So let's navigate to where we want to download that, which would be in our source directory, and we'll just dump it right here in the GitHub folder, and we'll click clone and open. So this is pretty standard in most apps that have integration with GitHub. We're just going to download it, clone the repo, and once that's done, we'll open up a brand new version of Brokk that'll have that code base as its repo. Collect essential only, click OK. It'll pop open that new project, and we'll do that. We'll maximize this window. When you pull down a new repo, Brokk goes ahead and runs code intelligence on it. So it essentially analyzes the contents of the project, and then it takes its best guess at what things you want set up here in your project settings. So in this case, it realized this is a Java project. It sets the Java home. If it can find the build configuration information, it'll add that, but you can manually put that in if you like. And any of the other items, code agent tests, those all get inferred if the code intelligence is able to discern those from the code base. So we'll click apply and OK. And we're not going to do this commit right now. Basically, we set up a Brokk directory, which is labeled .brokk, and then we add that to the git ignore. This allows us to keep track of all of the activity that's related to Brokk that's happening inside a specific repo, and that allows you to share those sessions and all the information around the project across multiple projects for yourself as well as for your team. So one final step I want to take a look at before we wrap up is just to take a look at how that repo shows up in here. As you can see, the entire project shows up in pretty standard fashion, where you can see the entire project repo. And from this point, you are able to begin work. You figure out what you want to do, pull down an issue, work on a new feature, figure out how you want to work on it, and then design your prompt and fire that off into the Brokk editor and see what happens. That wraps things up for this installation walkthrough. This should give you a really solid start with Brokk. If you like what you saw today, head on over to brokk.ai, download Brokk, and give it a try. Thanks for watching. My name's Dylan, DevRel at Brokk, and we'll see you next time.